My friends have been asking me these days what I can share with them. In fact, I have developed a lecture this morning, and the title is Quality Online Learning Modules. And I would like to share this with you, and I'll share this based on this context. Friends and teachers are asking me, how did you develop your online modules in Moodle, particularly those who are using Moodle? What principles have you used in your design? We have to design our online modules so that students will be engaged in learning and they will survive in online classes. Can you show a sample? So with this context, I have developed this in response to the many questions, many requests of friends. I would like to begin my presentation by saying that I'm responding to questions because of this context. Some teachers have already an LMS. They already have a CMS, particularly Moodle. They are using it as an open source CMS. And they have already recognized through a census, through a survey, that they have full online learning students. They're ready students, they have capability, and what is what bothers them is the quality of the material, the quality of the learning module that they are developing. So my suggestion is this that I have developed, and this is a result of an experience, an observation for the past 1 to 3 months that I have interacted with many teachers. They have asked me to go through go into their online classes and observe what they have done. And these are some of my observation. And as many years that we have been involved in online classes, I will also make this suggestion. So if you'll ask me what principles have I used in designing my online um, learning materials and online lesson module, having an LMS like Moodle, I'll share some of these principles. So before going to the details, I have used the resources that I have on hand, and I am sharing these principles coming from these sources. I have put them all together, and I have studied carefully some of their thoughts and applied some of the principles that they have used, and because of that, I have developed my online modules. An online learning module is a tool that provides course materials. Okay, course materials. And it's logical, it's sequential, order. And the purpose is to guide students through the content and assessments in the order specified by the instructor. So let's be careful with that thought. Let's just analyze it. So course materials, and remember, logical, sequential, orderly. And the purpose is to guide the student. It's not to confuse the student. It's to lead the student to achieve a certain learning outcome. And if it's online, you can insert formatted text, you can insert files, web links, discussion topics, group discussions, others. So it's important that we sequence, it's important that we order, it's important that we logically organize our materials, our online learning module, because it provides students guidance. They should not be lost. Looking at your material, they should not be lost. They should be guided properly. Okay, so how do we design it? How do we design it? So you will expect that in this discussion here, we will briefly discuss the principles of deep design. We will describe student and learning centered instructional design. We will apply the backward design using the where. This is developed by Wiggins and McPiggy. We will integrate the principles from the community of inquiry framework. And we will also be designing our own as a result of the application of these principles that we have here. So that's what you will expect in the presentation. I'll put that into a model, Right, so my suggestion is, I will just put this down here. My suggestion is this: my experience, my online learning module is influenced by the principles of deep design, student and learning centered instructional design. We'll take a look at that in a while. I have also considered the dimensions of learning. Marzano is very popular in this. I have also reviewed the principles of the community of inquiry framework, but I have revised this in the context of Adventist education and teaching. The three elements, essential elements of a lesson by Ullman. We'll take a look at the Cunningham's phases of effective lessons. We will review where model, okay, model, structure, and this is the understanding by design. I have integrated the principles, all of these I have used in my designing of an online module. So you will be expecting that the principles will be applied here. So by now you will have uh, as of now, now you have already an idea that these are the bases, these are the principles that I have used in my design. Can't fully perfectly apply, but these are the guiding principles. We should never write our modules by just saying, I'll do this, I'll do that without a basis. Remember, this is pedagogy or this is andragogy. So we have to be sure of the principles that we will use. Okay, so let's take a look at each of these. Okay, so how deep is your instructional design? Okay, how deep is your ID? Let's go to the first one. Um, uh, Earlier, I said that we will cover uh, this. So principle, let's take a look at the principle of deep design, student and learning center. Okay, let's go to this one. How can we translate curriculum guides, standards into specific lessons that make sense to students? Those are the questions when we will uh, apply the deep design principles. Deep design, how we design with some depth of understanding. In the Philippines, we have curriculum guides, we have standards from the Department of Education. If it's from CHED, the we have the CMO, CHED Memorandum Orders. So um, let's translate. How can we translate that? They have their learning outcomes, they have their learning competencies. How can we translate that into specific lessons? So deep design is translating to specific lessons so that they will make sense. These lessons will make sense to students. We cannot just give the CMO to the student. We cannot just give our course outlines to the students. These days, they can't understand the details, the specific outlines there. You'll just say, you lecture here, there. They can't understand. It should be specific lessons. What are these that students um, ready to learn? Okay, we have to diagnose. We have to ask, what are these that students are ready to learn? What will engage them online? How can I design meaningful and useful learning experience that lasts a lifetime? How can we design meaningful and learning experiences? Remember, it's meaningful. Remember, it's useful. Just don't put content there and they can't use. Just don't put a lesson there that he can't use in the future. Not meaningful to them. They will not be engaged. Uh, they will not find meaning in those lessons. So answer those questions because we are into deep design. Deep into students' learning experience. Deep into students' learning experience. Deep into content. See, it's not only content, it's learning experience. How they will learn the content. What thinking skills will they employ in learning the content? Deep into specific learning activities, deep into assessment approaches to detect learning. We have to use assessment approaches, time-tested, authentic, alternative assessment approaches to detect that students are learning. Deep into demonstrated student learning, you see? It's not only acquiring knowledge, it's not only integrating knowledge, it's not only uh, pouring knowledge into the brain, but we have to also detect, we have to also go into the understanding demonstrated student learning. That even online, we can see that students are using knowledge meaningfully, as dimensions of learning will tell you that. Okay? So, deep work of designing. So, when I design my online class, I have to think about those things deeply. If teachers just say, what will I do this afternoon? What activity will my students enjoy? Hey, teachers, and that is teacher and classroom centered instructional design. That's not student and learning centered instructional design. We have to from shift now from uh, teacher and classroom centered instructional design to, if these are just your questions, this is not deep work of design. So let's go into the deep work of designing by considering these principles that asking these questions and these principles. Students thinking. Okay, if you will just be focusing on students' activities, hey, a while ago, what activity will my students enjoy? What will I do this afternoon? Those are very narrow. But moving to student and learning-centered instructional design, the focus is students thinking versus just activities. Many teachers will just say, I'll just give them an activity, I'll just give them an activity here and there, and that's enough. No, that's not. Students thinking. How will the students learn? You have to ask that when you design your lesson. How will the students learn this content? This content. Development of intellectual skills versus just this performance. I have developed I am already glorified for I have already my online modules. But are these online modules, lessons, serve as tool, guide, in sequence, logical manner, the development of intellectual skills? Okay? Students thinking. Don't just give an activity there without targeting learning experience, thinking experiences. What students take away from classroom? Okay, what will students take away from your online class? What will they take away from your online class versus just on classroom events? I have made a I have done this and that in my classroom, but what are students taking away from these learning activities? Question: what will students learn today versus what will students do today? If you will just say, what will they do today? Many teachers, even face-to-face classes, they will say, I will give them activities just to be sure that they have something to do. What will students learn today? That's important. Versus what will students do just today? Just to cover time. Planning focuses on long-term learning outcomes versus teacher's time with students. I was in my classroom. I was here. I was there. I was in the online class. I was there, present. I responded to students. I was there. I was present online. But were those activities, were those things you placed in your module have long-term learning outcomes that students will never forget? They will learn, they will take away from your classrooms. They will remember even 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, and a lifetime. Those are important. So focus on student and learning-centered instructional design. That's deep design. How will students learn? Teaching them how to learn. How to learn. There was a book I read before, Learning How to Learn. Apply those principles here. teaching them how to learn, not just what to learn, providing learning activities, immersing them into learning pathways. Let them work, let them be engaged in learning, providing them learning activities, immersing them into learning pathways, teaching them how to learn. Okay? Not just submitting assignments. That's all. No, 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 no. Teach them how to learn, how to think, how to process information, how to use information. Let's talk about that when we go to dimensions of learning. The teacher's role here, what's the teacher's role? We have to just design deeply by focusing on student and learning centered instructional design. So it's learning centered, it's learner centered, it's also learning centered. Students will be active, students will be engaged, students will be immersed into learning pathways that they will never forget. They will learn many things. We'll be using critical thinking, creative thinking, many others. So adequate lesson planning. What is adequate lesson planning? Thinking about what we want students to learn. What do we, let's ask. When you go to deep learning, deep design, I should say, we will think about what we want students to learn. Interest, the content, the skills, the competencies. Let's review them. Let's take a look at them, and let's see how we can put that into a learning module that will be of interest to the student, and that will be beneficial, meaningful, useful to the student. Identifying methods of assessing student learning, assessment of learning. So we have to consider this in deep design, identifying, addressing specific students' challenges inherent in the lesson. The learning difficulties of the students, we also have to address that. That's deep designing. You don't just write and finish. We already have an online module. We have to consider the prior knowledge of the students. We activate prior knowledge and we build background knowledge. If they don't understand this, we have to assume all of those. We have to take a look at those contexts so that we can properly design our lesson. Designing ways to explicitly guide students as they practice using new language and content. See, some of them do not probably understand English that much. New language in your content, new words, new terms. Guide them that they can use those, they can acquire those, and they can use them in context. That's transfer of learning also. So when we go deep design, we consider those very, very important principles. So we just covered principles of deep design. Okay, you can go back to this later on if you like. So let's now go to dimensions of learning briefly. The dimensions of learning started with the group Marzano, 1997. These are aspects of learning should be considered when doing curriculum instruction and assessment. We are doing here, we are producing a curriculum document we call a learning module. This is part of the instruction. We also have assessments there. So when we develop, we have to understand dimensions of learning. Okay, and these are the dimensions because these are aspects of learning. So we say students will be coming to my online class. They will be taking a look at my module, and I'll see if the aspects of learning are here. What are these? Dimension 1, positive attitudes and perceptions about learning. Acquiring and integrating knowledge, extending and refining knowledge, using knowledge meaningfully, productive habits of mind. That includes critical thinking, creative thinking, self-regulated thinking. There are many materials you can have online, but I'll just briefly take a look at this because these are the guiding principles that I have been using when I design my online classes, my online modules. Okay, so Carefully study this. Carefully study these ones. So the dimensions of learning are very important. Okay, so when we say positive attitudes and perceptions about learning, we are saying we develop positive attitudes and perceptions on learning. If the students do not have a very good attitude towards learning, we have to motivate them, we have to attract them, we have to hook them, as UBD terms it, hook the students, develop a love for learning. The module should develop love for learning. It should not push the students away. Okay, so develop. Once they have developed positive attitudes and perceptions on learning, then they are ready to acquire and integrate knowledge. Okay, they are able to acquire and integrate knowledge. Then after acquiring and integrating knowledge, integrating means there's prior knowledge already, and acquisition of new knowledge. You have to have strategies how to acquire, help the students how to acquire knowledge, and help them, guide them through your module how to integrate to existing prior knowledge. Then once those are already learned by the student, they can extend and refine knowledge, polish. They can extend and refine, master. Okay, um, more applications to various contexts. Then using knowledge meaningfully. You use knowledge is transfer of learning. Then productive habits of mind. Without productive habits of mind, critical thinking, creative thinking, self-regulated learning, that's also connected to dimension 1, which is positive attitudes and perceptions about learning. I'll take a look at a slide. I think I have placed the slide somewhere, which is in connection with that. I'm sorry, but I think that's a general. Those are general principles. I said earlier that the dimensions of learning principles are very important. There are materials there available, but I'm just saying these principles are very important, crucial. These are aspects of learning. So when you look at your module, you'd say, am I developing positive attitudes and perceptions on learning here? What are the strategies I'm employing? So integrate a strategy, an approach where you can develop positive attitudes towards learning, and help students through a learning strategy acquire and integrate knowledge. Right? Then provide activities that they will also extend and refine knowledge mastery. Revision. Okay? Uh, um, Solving um, some concepts that they have not understood. Refine, extend. If there are misconceptions, skills and knowledge, attitudes, refine. Then when that's already through, that step, that dimension is clear, then move to using knowledge meaningfully, transfer of learning, applying what has been learned to various contexts, to various real life situations. And then the dimension of productive habits of mind, extending more to critical thinking, creative thinking, invention, self-regulated learning, thinking, I should say. Those are um, woven principles that, when used, they are powerful when they are placed into our modules. Okay, so we are through with that. So I have discussed deep design principles. I have briefly discussed dimensions of learning. Now we go to the theoretical framework for online and blended learning. Many have been using this, as I've observed, the community of inquiry framework, which is grounded in collaborative constructivism. These are the authors. And they said that online learning and blended learning, particularly, uh, must have these three important presence: social presence, teaching presence, cognitive presence. That means that all of these ingredients must be placed inside your online activities, learning activities, or the module. So I will say that if I'll create a module, I'll ensure that social presence principles are there, teaching presence also there, cognitive presence also there. What do these mean? Okay, when we say, I have also inserted a figure source here. I just lifted this one from the picture, I should say, but you can also access the material through this. Social presence means affective expression. Or online, it's very lonely to be online. Well, you're alone behind the computer, but if the design is integrating open communication between the teacher and the students and the classmates, effective expression, open communication, risk-free expression, it encourages collaboration. Those indicators, they're very important. If these are found, then it will be a very, very powerful learning module. Cognitive presence suggests quality of the content, the quality of the thinking processes, the quality of engagement between the learner and the content, skills, coverage of the lesson. There should be triggering events, there should be exploration, there should be, this is already lesson proper, huh? Integration, resolution, applying new ideas. If you take a look at this is dimensions of learning. Information exchange, sense of puzzlement. Look at this. If you will read dimensions of learning, you will also find, okay, um, acquiring and integrating knowledge, okay, cognitive presence. The teacher must design that, okay, that students will enjoy content as well, engagement with content, and teaching presence. That means design, the organization. Remember our definition a while back? Logical, sequential, organization. The facilitating of discourse, your direct instruction, sharing personal meaning, setting the curriculum and methods. This is organizing the teaching presence. If you have organized your online learning material very well, the learner behind the machine will say, this is a very organized one. This learning module is interesting. It's logical. The teacher is here. He has really prepared the material. You see? If your material has typo errors, if your material is not well arranged, not organized, instructions not very clear, that means the teacher is not there. If you have placed materials that are not nice, placed materials there, activities that are not also very useful to the students, they will say the teaching presence is not there. So all of these are interconnected. If you don't respond to the students when they have inquiries, you have fora there, you have discussion boards, and they don't respond to you, then they will say, you don't respond to them, then they'll say, there's no teacher here. So review these principles. These are very important when you design. See, the social presence, that's the educational experience of the student online. These are the elements that make the educational experience very, very meaningful. How will an online teacher adapt this? In fact, I critique this one because this is lacking. If I'm an online teacher, I don't just consider the social presence, the teaching presence, the cognitive presence. This is the reason why I cannot adopt and copy just another lesson. I cannot just use any other materials online without passing through my model, my screening. I cannot use any other learning activity or learning approach I cannot accommodate any other content or textbook without my screening. Why? Because I am an Adventist educator. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist educator. I cannot just easily adapt or adopt any other online learning platform because this is missing. What's the missing part? I'd say God's presence is the missing part. So my take on this is this. God's presence must be there. Okay? God's presence must be there. If God's presence will be there, it will influence the social presence. If God's presence principle is there, it will influence the teaching presence, the cognitive presence. That's why before you design your lesson, because it requires deep thinking, you have to seek God's wisdom. You have to seek God's guidance. The Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The Bible also says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And that should be taught to students. They should feel God's presence in the social presence. They should feel God's presence in the teaching presence. They should feel God's presence, experience God's presence in all of these aspects. So this is my approach. God's presence must radiate to cognitive presence, teaching presence, social presence. That's why every section of your online module must include elements of values formation, elements of God's guidance, God's leadership, God's influence in every learner, and that's the meaningful part of the learning experience. All of these that we have, content, thinking, coming from God, we have to recognize Him in every aspect of our learning module. And I'll guarantee you, you will experience success. It will not be a boring class. It will be a rich experience because God is there. Okay? What's God's presence? Integrate in your class, seeking God's kingdom first of all and all the time. So when you start your class, when you start your module, God's presence must be there. Include values formation. Integrate faith into the learning experience. Integrate values for the character of God, the presence of God, His character, His law, His word. Because the Bible says 119, 105 of Psalms, Psalm 119, 105, the word of God is the lamp and light unto our feet. So let's integrate in our content. Our content must be based on the scriptures. Science is there in the Bible. History is in the Bible. Okay? Human behavior you can find in the Bible. Presence of the Holy Spirit should be there. Gift, fruits of the Holy Spirit, love, joy, peace, long-suffering, etc., etc. So all of these and others, the Word of God, must be central to the design of our lesson. See, we have the deep design. We design deeply. We don't only consider those areas, but now we are putting God at the center, putting God's presence there, and the rest will just. So see, all will be important, but God's presence must govern all of this. It is very, very important. When this God's presence will be around them, module will be very, very, very meaningful, useful to the learner, integrated into the content. So I have discussed principles of deep design. We combine, and that should influence our online learning module. Okay? So those are very important principles. I have introduced the terms. There are many articles, literatures available online that you can go back and refer to. But those are the basic principles. Let's go now to the phases. How do we structure them? With all those principles, how do we structure our online learning module? Okay, let's take a look at this. What are the components? How do you arrange? How do you sequence logically? Okay, According to Ullman, there are essential components. You have learning targets. This is basic lesson planning. Learning targets. You have the body, the skills. This is skills building, competences building. You build competences, acquiring knowledge here. See, you have objective, learning targets. Place the objectives first, place the learning targets first. Tell the students, inform the students that the learning targets for this module are the following, blah 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 blah. And after introducing the learning proper, then once the skills are already learned, competencies or outcomes are learned, objectives are met, then there's the reflection part. Close the lesson, thinking back about what has been done, what are learned by students. So basic, we say three parts. First, objective, intro part, the body, and the closure part. Okay, let's expand that a little bit. Okay, so let's go to phases. So looking at those, you will notice that Cunningham also expanded that, and I will say this is sequence of learning events. So how do we start the module? You do some introduction. According to Cunningham, you phase 2 is foundation, brain activation, body of new information, clarification, practice and review, independent practice, and closure. Then you close your class. You introduce, this is body, appears to be body 2, 2, 7, body 8, you close. But this is sequence of activities. Now, what's introduction? Set the purpose of the module. Introduce key concepts, topic, main idea. Pull students into excitement to learn. Okay? Send that positive attitudes and perceptions on learning according to dimensions of learning. Right? So, pull students into excitement to learn, making learning relevant. You see, developing a positive attitude. They are just very related. Importance of the lesson. Why is this lesson important? Attract students' attention. Meaning of the lesson to life. Very important. Introduce. So, first part of your module, do a little introduction. Set the purpose, etc., etc. Foundation. Then you move. Sequence. You move to checking on prior knowledge. What are the clarify key points? You start to build the new lesson. Focus on specific standards, objectives, goals. Focus on what they will achieve. Objectives. Check for correctness and add to background knowledge. These are some aspects that you can introduce. If there are terms, you introduce the key terms. Then you go to brain activation. Now you start developing, you start engaging, thinking. Remember, deep design thinking, intellectual thinking, intellectual development, intellectual skills, learning skills. Ask questions to clarify ideas and to add knowledge. Brainstorm main ideas, clarify and correct misconceptions. Okay, this is, if you will go back to dimensions of learning, you will see this as extending and refining knowledge. Body of new information. So there are, you continue, explore and enable students, ask questions to clarify ideas and to add knowledge. Brainstorm main ideas, clarify and correct misconceptions. Body of new information related to phase 3. 4, still body of new information. Teacher input. Learning activities with teacher supervision. I think these are very practical. If you are a new teacher, maybe this is new to you. You don't have a background in teaching, but we saw how teachers perform this in their class. Then teachers say, "I'll check whether the students have understood problems, situations, questions, or content as a whole." Practice and review. Okay. Then after acquiring and integrating knowledge, after acquiring from phases 2 to 5, then practice, mastery. Okay. Review to ensure that they are mastered already. And some more independent practice. If you look at this is with the guidance of the teacher, practice and review. But here, independent practice, reflect and rethink, rehearse, provide supervision for independent practice. Teacher will provide supervision, check more, validate students have already learned or not. Rehearsing for the final performance. You see how learning, uh, the dimensions of learning are progresses from first to next and next and next until students can demonstrate learning after acquiring skills, knowledge, attitudes, etc., etc. Then you close the class. Closure means demonstration of what students learned. That's part of closure. Summary of the lesson. Students share their understandings and reflections. So, you say, what have you learned? This is what I learned. I can demonstrate now. So the teacher can check. Teachers will allow your students to show learning, demonstrate learning. They can even summarize learning. So these are the 8 phases according to Cunningham. You can review this. I'm just running through it quickly. So we are through with that part. Then we introduce the next. We have the backward design. Okay, I'm applying the backward design because in the Philippines we are already using outcomes-based education in tertiary education, the framework that we are using in teaching learning process. In the basic education, we also have a curriculum we call competency-based curriculum. Competency-based education. That's also called performance-based instruction. Okay, so Wiggins and McCready, 1998, pioneered the backward design. So what do? Identify the desired results first, determine the acceptable evidence, and plan learning and learning experiences and instruction. See, learning events follow after identifying what students need to demonstrate, need to show, need to provide to the teacher as evidence. And first we identify what the desired results are, the big ideas, the big competencies, the skills. So we don't start with content, we start with basic skills, desired results. Then follows content. See, look at this. The background course design is learning outcome first, skills, content follows. This is the model that we will be using. What will students know aside from what they'll know able to do? Okay? Remember, there's transfer of learning here. It's not only knowing, that's the desired results. We have to apply what we know. That's a desired result. The desired result is not just knowing, knowledge. It must include able to do, performance, demonstration of learning. That's so it doesn't only have to end in quiz and test and multiple choice test. Then finish. That's not the desired results we want. We want them to demonstrate knowledge, to show knowledge, apply knowledge in real life. Okay, and what's the evidence? When we can determine the evidence, what they should do, what they will do if we can determine the expected target. Then after we expect the target, after we can identify the target, then we can start designing the steps, the lesson, the activities, learning experiences, and instruction. Identify the desired results, as what I said. The enduring understanding of the student is not just to do, to know, but to do as well. Okay? They can be familiar with very important concepts, and that can be checked by quizzes, etc., etc. But this is important. Okay? That part, see, with its performance tasks and projects, because it's not only to know, but to do, and that endures. That's an enduring understanding. Remember our concept, deep design is lifetime. What will they remember when you design something that what they learn in your design can be remembered in a lifetime? It's not only an activity that we will perform, we will do in the class, but what students take away from the lesson that they can use in their lives. See? Authentic, real life. It's not just simple, it's complex because life is complex. Open-ended. That's to know and to do. That cannot be assessed. That cannot be evidenced only by traditional quizzes, paper, pencil. No, 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 no. Familiar, something familiar, just recognition of concepts. You can. But I'll say here is important. So let's shift. So when we put something in our learning design, online learning design with competency-based curriculum, with outcomes-based education framework, we have to emphasize this. Okay? So we will check. If I look at the module, I'll check the learning outcome, learning targets. Does it focus on this? Okay? And that's enduring. How do we choose, identify competency, learning outcome, enduring outcome? Enduring value beyond the classroom. It's enduring. Able to do, to know and to do. Extent of its residence at the heart of the discipline. Potentially our potential for engaging students. So, I said a while ago that in this context here, in these ideas here, in this part here, this is how we will put it in a model. See, the knowledge, skills, and abilities are just means that they can perform, okay, for a given function, standards expected in employment. Okay, so when we say what is an enduring understanding, knowledge, skills, attitudes that enable one to effectively perform, demonstrate, to do. That's the to do part. The activities of a given occupation or function expected in one's employment. Those are general terms, but that is the main idea. Able to know and to do. That's true. Performance tasks. So, determine acceptable evidence. Step 2. Performance tasks or projects. These provide evidence the students are able to use their knowledge in context. See? A more appropriate means of evoking. That's what they said. Okay? Tighe and Wiggins said performance tasks are projects. These provide evidence that students are able to use their knowledge in context, real life. A more appropriate means. This is a more appropriate. The performance tasks or projects, the performance tasks or projects are appropriate means. Appropriate means. Look at this. Of evoking and assessing enduring understanding. Remember that. So, design a learning module that addresses this, that has a performance task. Okay? Very important. Why did I say important? Because I'll go back to that slide again to emphasize more. See? This is it. Okay? That will assess what? Enduring understanding. So at the end of the lesson, you'll say, I'll give you a multiple choice test and it's over. No. No performance task. That's not the desired results that we are interested in. The desired result that we're interested in is something that is in the context of performance tasks. Why? Because that's the only way to assess enduring understanding. Important to know and to do. Let's review again that principle. Performance tasks or projects, these provide evidence. Remember, we are in step number 2. So we say, what's our target? The target is this. And what's the performance task? The target is this. Learning outcome is this. The competency is this. And that competency must be translated into a performance task. And that learning objective, learning target, must be translated into a performance task, because these provide evidence that students are able to use their knowledge in context. And this is a more, as the definition says, appropriate means of evoking and assessing enduring understanding. That's what the Philippines is into, that competency-based curriculum. See the curriculum guide, you have performance standards, learning outcomes, performance standards. There are performance standards because that's a way of assessing enduring understanding. It's not saying they're true or false. It's not saying those are just means that they can means. Knowledge are means. Okay, knowledge, skills, I said earlier, means, knowledge, skills, and abilities. You check this by multiple choice. You check this by true or false, etc., etc. You know that. Performance tasks is complex challenges that mirror the issues and problems faced by adults. You see, you create performance tasks there. You identify performance tasks that mirror the issues and challenges and problems that adults face. They are authentic, I should say, real life. Okay, you can review the slide. It features a setting that is real or simulated. So you can require students to simulate something, or you can place them in real context as their performance task. Okay, allow students greater opportunity to personalize the task. Sorry, personalize the task, and you tell them ahead of time the task, the criteria, and the standards that will guide the students of their work. Then, after the desired results are set according to the background design, you can go to what the evidence that I require my students. Then I'll say, okay, I'll plan now how I will teach the course, the unit, or the module, I should say. That's how I organize the coherence of the learning experiences, step by step, the sequence, the logic, okay, the episodes, the phases of my learning experience in this module. And teaching will evoke and develop desired understandings, and you promote the interest. You see how positive attitudes and perceptions again comes back. Wake excellence performance. So this is the practical way that UBD, understanding by design, the backward design, has suggested. This is the unit model, the sequence of activities. So you start the module, the sequence of learning events, by saying, where is it going? What are the desired results? The evidence of the target evidence of learning. Then you start, then after saying that, then you hook your students. See, her, H-E-R, this is the lesson proper. Okay? So if you will look at the 8 phases of Cunningham, this is the introduction, okay, foundation. Then you go to the phases and then closure, exhibit, and evaluate. Let's take a look at each of these. Where is it going? What are the students' final obligations? Target, performance task, learning targets, the anchor performance assessments. What will they work on? Okay, what are the questions that they need to be that needed to be answered? So state them ahead of time. Remember the introduction of Cunningham. Remember the first phase also of that other guy that we discussed earlier. Then you hook the students after the where. You place all of these elements. Then you hook the student. What do you mean hook? Though I will edit this through engaging, okay, through engaging and provocative and entry points. So engage the students. Provocative entry points, thought-provoking and focusing experiences, issues, oddities, problems, challenges that point toward essential questions, core ideas, and final performance tasks. So you just organize that there's something that provokes, that hooks the student. The simplest way is attract attention. Hook the students means motivate them, engage them. Okay, hook, instant immersion in questions. You can raise questions. You can put problems to begin with. You can put cases, challenging situations. That's why you can apply case method or problem-based method. So as you begin your module, you can say, here's a case, ba 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 ba. Okay, then that will attract interest. Thought provocations. You can say, here's an anomaly. These are weird facts. You can start with that. Okay, some of these ideas here, very neat, very powerful approaches, strategies that you can hook your students in your lesson. Do not just say, our lesson for today is this and this and this and that. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Do more. Deep design. Okay, don't just be content with surface approaches. Deep design. Okay, hook. Experiential hooks, confronting their feelings, put some obstacles there that have to solve problems, put some differing points of view or multiple perspectives that students will be interested to take a look. Okay, consider. Then once the students you have already placed in your module some hook experiences there, then you can start explore and equip, which is engage students in learning experiences, explore the big ideas. Now this is the lesson proper, you see. Core, the body, research and test ideas, they try things out, provide learning experiences that they will explore, have them experience ideas and make them real. Okay, and then equip students for the final performance. Through guided instruction, you coach them the needed skills and knowledge. Be very important. Okay, so this is the lesson proper. So many things you can do, creative things you can do if you just follow these principles. You can review them. Again. As you listen, you can just stop in this section of the video and then can reflect on each of those. Those are the things that I'm using. Then, how do you know that the students understand the lesson, their lesson? You can require them to explain. You can require them to interpret. You can require them to. You can place them into a situation where they can apply the principles. They can share their perspective. They can feel the role of other people, the shoes of other people, empathy. Okay, what do you feel when? What if you are in the shoes of? You see, empathy. What if you're an engineer? What if it's math, you know? What if you're a scientist and you do this? That's science class. Self-knowledge. What have you learned? Something like that. You can review these facets of understanding. In the explore and equip, let them explain, let them interpret, let students online apply. Share, take a look at perspectives. Okay, review these principles. 6, so many online. Then strategies that you can use. Then when you do that, class will be on explore and equip. Of course, they are related to content. You use content as your means to develop these things. Okay, having self, walk in another's shoes, value what others do. Okay, I'm just sharing definitions here. They can generalize, connect, provide examples, interpret, tell accessible stories, provide dimension, apply, use real context, have self-knowledge. See, awareness that they'll say, before I did not know this. Now I know now. I reflect on the meaning of the learning experience. They are excellent starting points, or as this slide says, touchstones for performance tasks. Now they can understand, they can show understanding by demonstrating this, then they are ready to demonstrate learning. But before they can demonstrate learning, dig deeper into ideas at issue through the facets of understanding. So reflect more remember the dimensions of learning, we see extending and refining knowledge after acquiring and integrating knowledge. This is acquiring and integrating knowledge. See, this is acquiring and integrating knowledge. Explore and equip, similar ideas there. And this is reflect and rethink. After acquiring and integrating knowledge, the next dimension is extending and refining knowledge. And this guides students into self-assessment and feedback system. Then, after rethinking and reflecting, then you can exhibit and evaluate. Now, this is now demonstration of learning. So if it's in the competency-based instruction or performance-based instruction, exhibit and evaluate understanding and solutions through authentic products. Remember? Performance tasks that involve meaningful context, clear purpose, and audience. They can either be simulated or real, in real life. You can put students into performance tasks that they will do this in real life or in a simulated manner. Then you can say, okay, I'll evaluate your demonstrated performance in terms of quality and effectiveness. So, you see, if you take a look at that, it's still, you begin with objectives, the body, and then reflection, close. So, I'll just review with you. If you will agree with me, you will agree with me that if you consider Ullman, consider Wiggins, and consider the phases, they just are very, very, very similar, and they are in sequence. Remember, this is phases. So you sequence your online module with this, integrating all the principles that you learn in deep design, dimensions of learning, backward design, and these are specifics in phases. Remember the community of inquiry. God's presence also will be there. So I'll put here at the center, if I will just revise this slide, God's presence must influence our objective, the where, the hook, all of these, the foundation. God's presence must be there. The principles of values formation will also be there, because we need to have a holistic approach in learning, and that should be the model in our online learning module, because I'm a Seventh-day Adventist teacher, online teacher. Okay, and we sequence that nicely, that at the end, closure, reflection, closure, exhibit and evaluate. Students will say, this is learning that I can take away from this lesson to life. And I am a better person after I went through, after I have gone through the module, lesson 1 of the teacher. Even if I am just behind the machine, the teacher was there. God's peace presence was there. The social presence was there in my online class. The teaching presence was there. I was hooked. See, the objectives are clear. The learning experiences are clear. The body, they're clear. All were clear. I practiced there. I honed my skills. I grasped content clearly. The sequence of activities were very, very clear and orderly. See? Then I'm interested to go to another lesson, another module. But these are the ideas of these people. How can we personalize our ideas? So these are the things that we have discussed so far. But my online learning module must be my own. Okay? So I also have to have my own design. Okay? So I can develop my own. After that, I have my online learning module with also a framework. I'll say, okay, I use the word leap as an example. Lean on. I say, you have to lean on introduction. Focus on the introduction. Carefully take a look at where the lesson is going, where the lesson is heading. Okay, I have to lean on God first of all. I have to focus and lean on the standards and objectives, because if not, the learner will be lost. Then explore and engage, linking to prior knowledge, development of new knowledge and skills. But I'm integrating here all the principles, the approaches used by those that we have discussed earlier. Then, here, assimilate and apply. Rehearse, revise, apply to real life, and then demonstration of learning, closure, produce, and perform. This is my simple. It's simple adaptation of those principles that we learned. Okay, so that's I am integrating. So when I make the design, I'll just term it my way. Okay, so you can design your own. Okay, so that's what I mean by you personalize. You use whatever you can find out there and design your way, because teaching is also an art. Okay, but we don't disregard the principles used in teaching and learning. They have to be there. They have to be present. They have to be used. And this is the sequence. During the pandemic, I also was asked to train teachers online, and I used online in Moodle. So I used the COVID learning design. And I said, connect to God, connect to the learning outcomes, connect to the performance task, connect to the topic, connect to the content. Just as we explained earlier, developing positive attitudes and perceptions, connecting, then own your learning. This is equipping. This is acquiring and integrating knowledge. Then venture into something new. Okay, this is knowledge. This is still on immersion into skills, knowledge, content, etc., etc. Then internalize. Internalize means extending and refining knowledge. Then demonstrate. Okay, rehearsing and then demonstrate. These are learning events, and I was successful in carrying out these ones. So what I am just saying is we can have our own, but still I have done that, but I have never forgotten these principles. Yet integrating the use of these principles in my design. I'll end by showing an example of what I have done online, so that you will know what I mean here. So now I will show now see, I have my lesson. I have integrated my lesson already into Moodle. This was a Moodle I was working on with a group somewhere, and I will show you how I have placed my thing here. So I said COVID, this is the lesson menu there. So I'll go to connect. So how did I connect to my students? So I connected with my students with welcoming them, and then specifying my introductions here, and having a devotional because I want to devote. So I spoke to them. I woke up and I connected them to God. I provided them a song and testimony, and I connected them to God first of all. Okay, just developing a good attitude towards learning. Then after doing that, I said, take a look at where we are heading. Own your own learning. You look at what is important here, and then what's the learning outcome. Look at this. What's the learning outcome? What's the evidence of the learning outcome? What are the enabling outcomes? I have to guide my students. What are the assessment? How will I assess them? I have placed in each of these enabling outcomes what I would like them to perform and do. And after that, I guided them, okay, placed my instructions there, and guided them into the teaching learning process. Okay, then I have guided them. I placed my lecture, I placed instructions, my introductions, I placed materials that they can access, and we will also be doing some forum here discussion so that I can talk to the student, to my students. I'll show you a sample of our discussions here. I'm gonna click that. We went through some discussions and with the students, and some of these. So I hid some of those so that it will be. So this is an example of of what we went through in this class and internalize. I provided time for them to internalize, and we had so many discussion here. We had forum and others, and then they demonstrate learning. So I asked them to demonstrate their learning. So they shared to me some of their output. We went to Zoom reporting, we went to discussions, and we were congratulating people for sharing their demonstrated learning. So I'm just showing to you how I carried out my COVID design without losing the principles that I introduced a while ago. So I hope that these principles will be a guiding principle. Okay, if you will use this, um, if this is beneficial to you, then you can adapt it. Attempt to integrate these principles. I did not have perfect modules. Some of those are, but I have attempted to integrate these principles because I have found that when I integrated these principles, the class was meaningful. Students learn. They tell me, I have learned this, I have learned that, and I now know how I can apply this to real life. And you see. So I hope that we can develop quality online learning materials, online modules, particularly online lessons. And don't forget, God's presence must be in this and integrate this. And with that, we will have successful online learners, and we will have successful, efficient, effective online teachers. Happy day to everyone.